Welcome to this DaVinci Resolve Fusion node breakdown. Today's node is the Particle Directional Force Node. So we're going to jump into Fusion where we've got an emitter and a render setup with a little background so we can see what we're doing. Now before I jump in, this is going to be a fairly short node breakdown, but if you want to wait to the end, we had one of our awesome family of subscribers submit a comment. So at the end, I'm going to use this comment and see if we can prove or disprove what he was commenting about. So stick around to the end. We're going to do that. And it does have to do with particles, so you'll learn some cool stuff. But jumping into this, we're going to add a directional force node. So P directional force. And we're going to stick that on our node. And let's change this emitter so we can see what's going on a little better. And under style, we're going to point cluster and we'll bump this up to say 200 and give it a lifespan of 300 so it's covering everything. So let me disconnect that. So right off the bat, this is our standard node and we're not going to add any velocity or anything to it. Just keep these particles sitting around, and as soon as we introduce a directional force node, it's applying directional force. And let me go ahead and move our emitter over so we know we're seeing what's going on. And all this directional force node is doing is it's applying force to these particles. And up top we have random seed, so we can randomize the seed. We can just hit reseed to select a random one. We can time lock so it's not reseeding, and we can change the strength. And once you get the strength going down too low, it's going to stop and then reverse itself. So we'll keep going. You can see it's going into the negative and reversing itself. And we can change the direction. And we can also change the Z direction. So we can move that to a point where it's flying straight at us. Under the conditions, we have the standard probability. So if we drop our probability, the probability of those particles being affected. We have our age of when they're going to be affected. And you have your sets, so you can select and deselect what sets are being used. Under our region, it's the same as the turbulence node we went over yesterday with our region mode, determining whether or not it was being affected by the region, went inside, went outside. And we've got all the different regions. Now today though, I'm gonna go over the bitmap because I didn't go over the bitmap yesterday. And I just skipped it so we could use it today. So I'm gonna stop this and we're gonna change up this emitter actually a little bit. And let's go to our region and we're going to change this to say a rectangle. And we're going to go to our directional force and kind of reset this so it's just going down. Now under your region for your directional force, you'll notice we have no inputs, but as soon as I select bitmap, we have an input for a bitmap. So just like on our emitter node, we're going to bring in some footage, and I'm just going to use this footage, which is just some weird geometric thing. And I'm going to use that to drive our particles. So if I input this and go up to our region mode and say when inside region, it's going to use that to start driving our particles. But first we have to pick what channel. So since this doesn't have an alpha channel, I'm going to pick the luminance, and you've got tons of different channels you can use, but I'm going to select the luminance. And if I play this back, you can see it's using that luminance of that media to drive our particles. And you can come down here and just like we do in the bitmap node or any other node to adjust the luminance that we're selecting. your lows and your highs. And that is your directional force node. It's pretty much just applying a directional force without using your velocity to drive those particles in what direction you want to use it. Now, just remember, you can still also introduce velocity. So if we did 0.5, that would mean all our particles are moving in the direction of the velocity that we wanted. And since it's so high, we can just do 0.001. You can see it's slowly driving that velocity and using our directional force. So that is the particle directional force node. And before we jump into going over one of our subscribers' questions, I'm going to delete this out and clear this emitter out or reset it. So one of our subscribers, Rui Costa 9857, he asked on yesterday's node when I was going over the intro particles that I use in my videos. He said, instead of using a lot of layers to create depth, can't we use the cube emitter and set the camera to do it? So, great question, and this is the whole point of why I kind of teach the way I teach. I like teaching these node breakdowns so you guys are learning nodes and not necessarily learn how to do something like in a tutorial. Hey, let's create this, and just learning what numbers to put, what to put where. In learning these nodes, the way I'm trying to teach you, you guys are kind of starting to ask more questions about, hey, what could we do to make this happen? And that's the whole point. If you're learning the individual nodes, you'll have the tools. It's kind of teach a man to fish, or give him a fish. I'm teaching you guys to fish, and you guys are fishing pretty darn well. And that makes me happy. So we're going to go over his question and see if we can use the cube emitter instead of how we did it yesterday, the layer base, to do the same thing. And I bet we can, but it's just another way. And it's a great question because there's multiple ways to do things in Fusion. So let's jump into our emitter and change our region to cube. And remember, this is a 3D cube. So you can see we have a 3D cube, and he was saying, hey, can we put the camera inside here and use all these particles as the individual layers? So basically a 3D environment. So let's see if we can do that. So we're going to change the size of this cube to fill up our entire display, so we're kind of inside this cube. And kind of off experience, I know we're going to need to probably go about 3, and that's going to put us in that cube. Now, as far as the style goes, and actually before we do that, we're going to set up our particles. So remember from yesterday, we want to make sure on our render node that we are not pre-generating frames. And we'll go into our emitter node, and we're going to spawn, say, 400. So we have 400 particles going around. Let's make that 600. Let's give us a little more. And we're going to keyframe that. And then we're going to go to our next frame and turn it to 0. So now we've got our particles lasting. And let's make sure our lifespan is lasting throughout. Let's just make this 300. So we've got particles lasting throughout our entire footage. And we're going to leave all that the same. But let's change up our style. So instead of point today, we're going to use the n-gon. And we're going to change our size. And let's make these huge. Let's make them like 3. And we'll change our size variance to like 1.5. So they're varied in size. And we're going to leave the rest of that the same. Now on our blur controls, we can go ahead and blur on our Z axis now. So let's crank this blur up, and ooh, look what's happening. We are blurring off in the distance. So if we take this and let's try to get those far particles in focus. And we'll change the particles that are closer to the camera off a little bit. So now we've kind of got this look going on, which is pretty cool. So let's add a P turbulence. Let's dump it down there and see what we get. And look at that, we got a bunch of particles at various lengths and distance from the camera. And you can go ahead and play with this to fine tune it and get it better if you want. We could go to our render and add a little more blur to it. And we could even add a trails node, a motion trails node, stick it in there. So now as that motion starts picking up, it'll give us like these lines kind of going across. Nice. So yes, Rui Costa 9857, you can use the cube to get the same effect. So great question, and keep asking them, you guys. That is today's node breakdown. I will see you in tomorrow's node.